Well, thank you for coming today. My name is Jeff Burtoft. I work at Microsoft, and I'm an advocate for web apps. I love web apps. I like to see the future of the web and the future of apps coming together at this intersection. And I think it's a really exciting place to be for us as developers. And there's some really exciting stuff going on in the standards body that I want to share with you today. And I not only want to talk about the specs itself, but what it means for us, how we're going to develop different in that new world, and where it can take us with our applications. So I want to start off and let you know, we're talking about the manifest for web apps, but what they left out of the spec is that we're actually talking about the manifesto for web apps. There's some deep-rooted implications in this spec. Now, I got to warn you, this is a huge manifesto. This is a Jerry Maguire size, show me the money type of change that is coming to us. And do you guys remember Jerry Maguire? It's like 20 years old or something. I feel really old that that was like a movie when I was in college. But anyways, as long as you know what I'm talking about, it's huge. Do you remember what happened to Jerry Maguire? Like, he woke up in the middle of the night after eating something bad and wrote this huge manifesto and gave it to everyone in his office and got fired and everything. But it's that big. It's huge. Now, I need to let you know, though, all right, let's do this first. So first, the spec itself. Okay, this is the abstract for the web app manifest spec. It defines a JSON-based manifest. First of all, that's really good because there's other ways that you can do manifest. And I'll tell you later, Microsoft is one of those who uses an XML instead of a JSON. So there's bad ways to do it, right? And then there's good ways to do it, which is JSON, which is a format that makes sense not only to JavaScript developers, but to developers everywhere. And it works really well with our web environment, right? And it provides the developers with a centralized place to put metadata. We've got a lot of metadata for our web apps right now. Now, this second paragraph is interesting because it says using the metadata, user agents can provide developers with means to create user experiences that are more comparable to that of native applications. Now, I personally, when I see this line here, and being from the great state of Texas, that's me, I see that thing that says comparable to native apps, and this is what I see. No, that's not what I see. This is what we do in, see, I don't know these slides that well, I'm sorry. This is what makes Texas different. In Texas, we have ice cream that's flavored like chicken wings. It's amazing. We have the best barbecue in the world. We invented cowboy boots, and we invented bacon. You know what we call people from California and Texas? Pre-Texans. It's just a matter of time, right? Everyone moves to Texas sooner or later. Okay, this is what I see when I read that. That when we're talking about taking on the way native apps work, we're saying we don't need native anymore. The web apps can create an experience to users just like that of native applications. So I went ahead and prepared something I think I want to share with you all today. This is a memorial to native applications. So I'm just going to take a moment and play that. And this is what has the audio. All right. There we have it. The memorial to native, it's officially over. We don't need them anymore, right? So let's talk about how we're going to get to that place, because honestly, today, we're a little far from there. The experience that a user has on the web is specifically a web experience. Now, why do we need the manifest? I mean, today, this is what our head looks like. We have meta tag after meta tag defining different size icons for different platforms and how we want the screen to be oriented and how we want it to be presented to the user. And it's getting to the point where it's a little out of hand for us. So if we want to increase the metadata that we provide for our applications and be able to give more instructions to the user agents and the platforms that the users are using, then we need a better way to do it. So wouldn't it be nice if instead of having this, we had this on the page instead? And that's what the web app manifest is. We're taking the metadata that surrounds our applications and combining it into a simple object. Now, from the highest level, that's what we're doing. And it's very important because we want to move forward. We want to be able to provide additional characteristics for our applications. And as web developers, we want that to be interoperable. It's really important for me and you that we only have to write that once and have it work everywhere. And really, that's not the case today. And I'll give you a sneak peek at what it looks like to develop apps today in the different ways that you have to approach platforms. But this is where we want to go. Now let's stop and talk about the application environments today. So at Microsoft, this is kind of how we talk about web apps in the platform. So first of all, on the far right or the far left, we have websites. And this is something that we're all familiar with. This is what happens when you go to a browser, you enter a URL, and you navigate to something. So from a user experience, that's a website. It may be very application-like. It may have a better user experience than most native applications, but still, when it's hit through the browser, it's easy to categorize it as a website. Now, moving over, whenever we take that website and we start to build it like a native experience, and that may be we're submitting it to the store, or maybe we are getting rid of the Chrome on the outside, we're taking that application and we're delivering it to the user as an app, but we want to keep the app, our website, on the server, right? Because we don't want to change the way that we do, the way that we work. We don't want to change the way that we deploy code. We don't want to change our ability to update our code in between cycles. So that's a hosted application, sometimes called an installable web app. So it's presented to the user as an app, but it still lives, it's hosted on a web server. And then the third scenario is the packaged or hybrid app. And this is when you take your web app and you take all the code and you put it into a folder and you zip it up and you ship it through a store. And then all of the code is actually delivered through the store. And usually you have services that go out and connect to provide the data, right, for your application. And this is kind of like writing a native application, but using JavaScript and HTML to do it. So those are the three different styles of applications. And I think that these styles of applications are going to continue to live for some time. I don't think any of them are going to go away. I think they all have value in different ways. Now, one thing I want to put out there, we'll talk a little bit about Cordova, because Cordova is a great vehicle to accomplish this today. There's many platforms where we have gaps on how you can build apps with JavaScript and HTML. So Cordova a lot of times can jump in there and fill that gap for you. And in most cases, Cordova is a packaged app. You can also use Cordova and point it out to a web server, and then it becomes a hosted application. But still, you have a good amount of code that is in the package and delivered through the store. So what's the status today? So we have a lot of platforms. And you notice that these aren't all browsers. Because in this space that we're in today, there's platforms like Windows or like Amazon Fire, and then there's browsers like Chrome and Firefox that are also platforms. So it's getting to the point where the browser becomes a platform as well. So when you're building an HTML5 app today, if you're building it for Chrome, you have a JSON manifest, kind of like the spec, except most of the values are different. And we'll look at those in just a few minutes. But it's a proprietary JSON config that you have. iOS and Android don't support native HTML5 apps. On Windows, you have a proprietary XML that you use to build your HTML5 app. On Amazon, you have a web entry form where basically you build your metadata outside of your package, and then they associate it for you. Opera and Firefox have proprietary JSONs, and Cordova has a proprietary JSON. Now, it's great that we have so many platforms that are building JSON manifest files for us to build. And that's why we need a standard, because there's so many different ways to do it. So if I'm going to build an application today, and I have an application I'm using as a demo, which I don't know if I have it up or not. That's it? OK. So this is my web app. It's a cool game called Yeti Bowl. OK? And the goal is that you drop snowballs down and knock the hikers, the evil hikers, off the mountain before they get up and steal your flags. OK? So this is a game. It's on my web server. I have it on a special web server here for today's presentation. But I want to, and I have taken this and released it to numerous platforms. And what I have to do in a scenario like this is I have my game built once. I have code that runs everywhere. But then when it comes to delivering it to the stores, I have to go and build proprietary manifest files for each one of them. So it's a tough thing. Today, OK, so this is what a manifest looks like in Chrome. And you'll see there's some of the values in there, like name and description, that are probably going to be pretty common to a lot of these proprietary ones you have. But the way that Chrome does it, I actually kind of like this. But they have you define basically a script to be your the base of your application. And this is kind of service workers-esque, where you have a script that can make decisions whether it serves you a page or whether you are asking for a push request or something like that. But you have a JavaScript file that's the base of your application. So that's what you're defining here in the manifest. Now, if we go over to Firefox, you'll see we have name and description. But then for them, we have launch path and an icon set, and the developer information and the permissions that you need inside the manifest. So you see that it's different information for each one, right? And I've got to build that for every platform today. So I'll mention again, I am from Texas, right? And we are very independent-minded there in Texas. But even Texans think that's crazy. I understand that you want to be serving your platform, and you want to make sure that your platform needs are taken care of. But we, as web developers, need interoperability, or what's going to happen? We're going to have to start making decisions about platforms that we serve. And that's a really bad place for us to be in, because we want to support every platform, but if the platform makes it hard for us, it's going to cost time and money for us to support it, and then the users lose out. So this is it. This is the manifest. OK, it's very simple. it has some of those same characteristics in it that you saw in the Firefox one and the Chrome one that I just pulled up. Names, icon sets, the start URL, display, orientation, and that's it. So there aren't really a whole lot of values defined. There's really a small set of them that's provided by the spec. So at first that sounds kind of bad, because now you're thinking like, okay, this isn't going to work for anyone because it doesn't have enough information. But I hope I can convince you that it's a good thing. Now, this is how the packages work today. You basically have one of two methods for deployment. Okay? The first one is the app package, which is really like a folder, you know, that you have on your desktop. So if I have my folder here, and this is my content inside of it, I would take this content, zip it up, and submit it to the store. Many times you give them the content and the store will do the zipping for you. But you have the app package, and then inside of it you have your website, you have your local assets, and you have your manifest. Remember, manifest is for metadata. So then it can read the manifest, pull out information like icons, description, developer name, and stuff like that, and submit that info to the store and build it out. So that's one way that happens. The other way is that there's an app package that has a pointer to your website, assets in it. And I say a pointer to your website, but if it's packaged, it's not a pointer, right? It's code inside the package. And then there's a manifest outside of your package. Okay, so in this scenario, something like whenever you go to submit an HTML5 app to the Amazon store, the Amazon Kindle Fire store, you go in there and you fill out all the information in a web form, and it congregates that information as a manifest. And then you just put in, either you upload your package or you put in the URL for your website. And then inside the store, it associates that metadata with your app and presents it to the user. They do a really nice job of doing that. And it was actually one of the easier stores to submit to. But still, it's different than what we have on other platforms. Now, this is where we need to get to. Okay? This is where we have a manifest. And the manifest is read by the user agent, whether that's a browser or whether that is the store, the platform itself. And then the manifest will point to your local assets in your website. Now, the big differentiation here is there's a package in this scenario, which means you have something that's congregated at build time and submitted to the store, which is something that you then have to keep up to date. And in this scenario, you have something that's generated at runtime. Okay, so remember the link tag that we looked at on the first screen? And we saw the link tag replaced all that metadata. So where we want to be is the point where I can go on my website and I can update that link tag. In all the stores, all the markets, all the platforms recognize that I updated my website, the manifest being part of my website, and then reflect that change to the user. So if I change my manifest and I change the icons that I'm pointing to in it, I need the store to then go recognize that I did that at runtime and update that to make sure that the user gets the most updated information. In today's world with a package where we have to submit it to a store or a listing somewhere, every time we make a change, we have to go resubmit it and resubmit it. That feels a lot like native applications. Now we have some code that we have to keep updated over here that's outside of our build cycle. This is where we want to get to. Okay? And that's what the spec is pointing to. When it has the link tag there, it's specifying that this is a part of our code base. When we update this, it should be recognized. Just like what happens today with a browser. If you update your base HTML page and a browser navigates to it, it's going to know that it updated, right? Okay, so this is the details that are covered inside the manifest. Name, short name, which is like a lot of times you'll have in the header or something like that, a short name, whatever character limit. Icons, start URLs, displays, orientation, and other. Okay, so these values are defined loosely, and the user agents need to be able to implement it in an interoperable way so that when we write our manifest, it works everywhere. Now, that other is important because what it also tells us in this spec is that we not only are building code that is interoperable across platforms, but we're also recognizing that every platform has something special about it, right? iOS might do something one way. Android might do it another way. Windows Phone does it a third way. And as a web developer, we may want to take advantage of those platform-specific features. So in that case, it does allow for the user agents to specify code that is not interoperable. It's kind of like prefixed. And I know that's scary because we're just trying to unbury ourselves from prefix CSS. But the difference, in my mind at least, is that these should be for specific features that don't exist across platform. So for example, on Windows, we have a live tile. So you can have a tile feed, you can use like an RSS feed that will roll through the different, see these things rolling here? Those are live tiles. They just roll through information that you pump it, and the user doesn't have to open the app to get into the information. So that's something that they don't have on other platforms. And today, we allow you to do that with a website through metadata. But that would be something that we would want to be able to allow you to do through your manifest. So that would be a good reason for us to do like an MS underscore or an IE underscore or something that triggers a platform-specific feature that we have that we don't have on other platforms. So it does allow for that. Okay, how is it supported today? What does it mean? No, I'm just kidding. There aren't really any browsers that support it yet fully, but there are a lot of browsers getting behind it, and not just browsers, platforms, right, who see the value and importance of this and are working and contributing on this. It's in the pipeline for Blink and Gecko. I just checked a few days ago in Firefox. It was last updated on the 10th of October, that there was a dev who was working on it. And in Chrome, they restarted work at the beginning of September. So we've got some real work going on. And IE, we've come out at Microsoft and said, yeah, this is something really exciting that we want to get behind too. And we're doing work of our own. Now, does anybody know how to find out whether IE is working on a feature? This is a test and there is no reward, so don't feel bad. Let me stop and show you, because we do actually put out the status of the platform. So this is on modern.ie, and we list the status of all of the different features of the specs out there in W3C, the specs other places, and whether it's something that we are working on, what version it's targeted for, whatnot. So if we wanted to, let's see, or just look at what is under consideration, you can go through there and say, these are the things that we're planning to do, right? These are the things that we're working on but are not yet assigned to a version number. If you want to see what is in development, you can go through and see what we have committed to and we have in our pipeline today. So if you're wondering, and you know, actually it works for recently built ones too. So HTTP2 preview release now means Windows 10. So that's why you don't see a whole lot of things. If you want to see when something was done. And we also take this data and we pump it into Can I Use. So if you have used Can I Use in the past and have been disappointed because it doesn't really know the support of Internet Explorer and the versions. We've worked with them to make sure that our data gets pumped into their data. So they now have the most recent data too. So you can go to Can I Use and get the data as well. So modern.ie. Okay, and a lot of other platforms are contributing to this spec as well. So you're going to see companies like Amazon and Intel who are building tools for developers standardize on this manifest as well. So one of the things that I've been working on, and it's very early, in fact, I just pushed it out to GitHub this morning, but I'm trying to build a little database of different platforms and what they support. And I'm very open for contributions. This is the HTML5 platform capabilities tracer. So I want to be able to provide a reference that you can go to find out if I have a hosted app, what platforms support it and how they support it. If I have a packaged app, if I'm using Cordova, things like that. I totally need some help. I think I only have one other contribution right now. And if you own one of these platforms or you work closely with it, please help me update the data in there. If it's wrong, I'm sorry. Just do a pull request and fix it. If you have knowledge of other platforms, I really want this to be universal. Some of the information I really couldn't find, like BlackBerry. I had a really hard time finding the information about how you work with their HTML5 platform. So if you're a BlackBerry developer, please go here and contribute. But the idea is that we'll have one place where we can go and see how platforms are coming along with their support. Actually, right now, by looking at this, the #1 platform for support is Fire OS. So all I have right now for categories are your native web apps, so like a packaged web app, hosted web app, Cordova support for packaged, Cordova support for hosted, and then do you have like pin or add to home screen? And Firefox or Fire OS has all of them. So Amazon is doing a great job at supporting us as HTML5 developers and making sure that we can continue to use our tools and skills to build apps on their platforms. Okay, before I go into this, let me just do some quick demos here. All right, so I showed you the Firefox and the Chrome manifest. So what I have here, this is the W3C manifest. Okay, so I have a tool that I work on that's called the Web App Template. I have it out for Windows. We'll be releasing our Android version this week, and then we're working on our iOS version, but I don't know too many iOS developers, so it's coming along kind of slow. But what the Web App Template is, it's a tool that allows you to build a hosted application and deliver it to different platforms so that you can continue to build your web app and easily get it into stores. So in the version 2.2 of this, we're moving to the W3C manifest. Like the other platforms, we had our own proprietary manifest, but I feel like the standard is far enough along now that we can just move to that. So that's what we're doing. So what I'm going to show you today is I got a tool that is called the WAP Roller, the Web App Template Roller. And what it's doing is it is going out and reading my manifest file. This is a store app I download. It's reading my manifest file and then building my application from it. So let me just reset this. And it's going to go to the default. It should go to the default. And while that's resetting, okay, I've got a configs folder here with my different configs in it. And Okay, so this is the docs site. So this is the base one that we have. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to point it to this manifest. So this is config.js. The manifest, different platforms today have specific line endings that they want for like file extensions, but in the standard one, you can use whatever file extension you want. Just because of the way I have my server configured, I'm just doing a .js. And it's pointing to my Yeti Bowl game with the name Yeti Bowl game. And you can see here where it's using the name and the icons. It will have the one from web app template there. So I'm going to go ahead and point this. And then update. And it's going to then point to my site. And now this is an application, just like any other one. It can be managed on the desktop. It has its own icon. Now, what I'm going to do is, remember, real time is an important part of this, right? We want to be able to read at runtime what the most recent content is. So I'm going to take this and add the icons into it. And right now you'll see it does not have the icons. So you'll see here it's still using the base icons from the package. So we will add the icons in. And the icons, what we're doing here is we're listing an array of icons, and we're telling it, we're giving the user agent some hints. Okay, so the first one is obviously the source reference is not a hint, it's a declared reference to your image. But then we're telling it what size it is and a hint to the type. So this helps us in two different ways. One, if we are a user agent that only supports particular types of files, we know that there's some that we can skip. If we're a user agent who's looking for a particular size of images, we know which one's the target. So specifically here, my sizes are 150 by 150 and 310 by 150, because those are the sizes that I support inside of my Windows application. So I add those back in, and we need to upload it. And then it's going to deploy it. It always goes slow when you're doing a demo. Why is that? Now I'm going to go back and do my refresh, just as if I was restarting. And now let's see if it's using the right images. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking the ability to be able to pin this to my start menu. And then, if I'm outside the app, it'll take me right to this app. So that way, if I use this tool to load multiple configs, I can have a config for Yeti Bowl. I can then go have a config for Bing and whatnot. So this is where we want to be, right? We want to be able to say we have a config that lives on our server, we update it, and every time I restart the app, it reads the most recent version. Now, the truth is today we're more closer to this. And this has the config in the package, right? This is the same thing that happens when you submit an app for Firefox, or you submit an app for Chrome or Chrome OS. You have your package of code, and then you'll have that config, that manifest, inside of the application here. So then you take this and let me update the URL. And then it's going to build it and read the config from the package and run the application, hopefully. So this is not ideal, but it's okay. It's okay to be here today because at least, the very least, if we get to the point where we have a single config that works across platform, we'll be in a pretty good spot. Even if we have to build different packages for it, I'd rather be using the same config file for every package than having to do a specific proprietary one for each package. Now, Firefox has a really cool way to do this too. Now I mentioned that Firefox is still proprietary. And that's okay. I don't think it will be that way for long. So I've already taken and pointed it to my Firefox config, and then I can start the simulator. And this is actually going to build up, instead of a separate app, like I showed you a minute ago, it's actually going to build a simulator right inside of the browser, which I've always thought was pretty much the coolest thing. Because you can test how your web application works right inside the browser. Here it is. And there you go. It's so nice when we have code that runs everywhere, right? Okay, so in the same type of thing here, we're still taking that config and uploading it to the store so it can be packaged, but we're making steps that direction. Okay. All right, so some implications from this spec that I want to make sure that we cement. So first of all, URLs are important. Okay, that's one of the differences between the packages and the runtime build for the manifest. I'll tell you, I've met a lot of developers who don't like stores, and I actually don't blame them because they're disassociated from their customers in some sense. If that particular store decides that it wants to take 30% of your profit and then it changes it to 60%, you've got a tough decision to make where are you going to leave the store and abandon your users, or are you going to give up even more money, right? So if you decide to pull your app from the store, what happens to your users? There's no place for them to go to still use your application. So the URL is still important because of that. It's still a location that you as the developer or you as the company own. Apple doesn't own it, Microsoft doesn't own it, Google doesn't own it, you still own it. And that's the great thing about the web. So the URL is important. It also allows us to submit these apps to the store, and we still have this common interchange point. So if you share something from your app with a user who doesn't have your app, you still have the URL, right? They should be able to go open it in a browser and get some functionality. It might be reduced because they may not have the APIs that you have when you're a hosted application or a package application to be able to do something special, but they should have the URL that still has the basic functionality. So URLs are important, and the manifesto, has that built into it. It knows that URLs are important. Runtime generation is important. Instead of dealing with it at a package level and submitting it for a build activity, we want it to be a runtime activity so that when we update our website, the app is updated as well. User experience is important. And that's how we started out with the spec when we decided that native was dead, or I decided for us that native was dead. The user experience is something that the mobile users have got accustomed to, right? They want to have an icon that they have put on their home screen and they can click on and their application opens. We want to be able to provide that for them. They have decided that they want to go discover an app in a store. We want to be there where they want to discover. When they look for our app, we don't want them to find our competitors instead. So we want to be where the users are, and we want to be able to provide them the experience that they're asking for. That shouldn't be something that's limited to native applications. Cross-platform is still very important. I hear more and more from companies today that it's costing them too much to build this same application over and over and over again for every platform. And I'm the guy from Microsoft who says, hey, why don't you write for Windows? And they tell me, it's like, well, we're broke from writing for iOS and Android and the web. So for them to write for Windows is sometimes impossible. You know, so that's why I can then go in and say, well, how about a web app that runs in our store? And usually they're pretty excited about that, and it usually works out pretty well for them. So cross-platform is important. We have to be able to build once and run everywhere. The amount of metadata is going to continue to increase. The spec has a few options in it that are declared, but I can guarantee as we mature as a platform, the web as a platform, and we decide on more things that should be standard across from user agent to user agent or platform to platform, they will be standardized. They will be built in there. Everybody wants interoperable code. And we also recognize that not only will the similarities start to gel, but also there will be new differences between platforms. If every platform behaved exactly the same way, it would be no fun for users. Every platform that they used would do the same thing. It would be a really boring market. So we want companies to continue to innovate and develop new things that is specific to their platform. So the manifest supports that as well. And it allows platforms to build the cool new thing and configure that through their manifest and not have to worry about it breaking the standard. Now there's a few specs that I want to point out to you today that I think are really important that go along with the web app manifest. The first one is this, the CSP. The CSP, the abstract is up here, but it's basically security policy that allows you to define server-side what type of features you want to enable client-side. So you can specify in your policy that I want to allow inner HTML, or I want to allow eval, or I want to allow whatever features it is that I am using. By default, everything else is disallowed. Okay? That would, everything unsafe. Obviously, it's not going to disable everything. But so CSP is very important because if I want platforms to be able to give me access to APIs that are not yet standardized or not yet sanitized for the web, then I need to put some sort of security policy in place. Well, right now, every platform has their own proprietary security policy that works a little different, that can be quite a headache for developers. So having a standardized CSP that is not controlled by the platform but controlled by the users is a very nice thing. So this is a spec that we should keep our eyes on. Service workers. So service workers, kind of like we saw in the manifest that Chrome has for Chrome apps, it allows you to specify a JavaScript as the base of your application instead of an HTML file, which means that that JavaScript, that worker, you know, that can go out and do things other than load a page. So there may be activities like notifications or background tasks that happen while the page isn't open, and that application should be able to make decisions as to what it's going to do instead of always opening a page. So service workers is very important for us to kind of mature past the point where web apps only run when they're in front of you and don't do anything in the background. That's great for memory allocation, but it's bad for building delightful features for users. So service workers, I think there's still a lot of work to do in this spec, but it's very important, and we want to see it develop. Push APIs and other features like this that are today kind of considered a native feature, but we really want to see in the web. These are important as well, because the more we can standardize those features, the less we need Cordova and platforms like that. And Cordova is a great thing, but the reason why they're there is because we haven't standardized some of the things that should be standardized today. So web notifications and push APIs should be standardized today. There's really not any reason why they shouldn't, but it's been taking a long time. So we want to see specs like that build momentum as well. So here's some resources for today that we pointed out. The spec itself, my framework, web app template. Right now it's Windows only. This week coming, Android version. I'm excited about that. Yeti Bowl, the game, the best worst game ever, and the HTML5 tracer. So please help me keep that up to date, contribute, and then me on Twitter, Boy of Green. So in a nutshell, that's it. Web app manifest, few values declared, but incredible implications on not only what we're going to be able to do in the future, but how we build our applications. So I have a few minutes for questions, and then after that, if you want to find me, I'll be in the Microsoft booth in the big room for probably the next hour. You can stop by. But any questions? You can clap, sorry. Thank you. All right, that's it. Have a good one. Thanks for coming.